Green flag. 5 off.
All right, so I had some requests on how I have my OBS software set up to record the races that I'm doing, and how does it all sort of work together, and how am I capturing the VR display headset directly as opposed to a screen mirror. So I put together a video here that kind of walks everyone through what I'm setting up in OBS and the tools that you'll need to download, and yeah, and how it all kind of works. So let's take a look.
Stay out this far because he's faster than I am.
All right, so let's jump into OBS first, and I'll show you what settings I'm using in OBS before we move on to the rest of it here. So basic canvas right here. We're going to go into settings first, and we're going to go into video, and you'll see that the canvas is set to essentially 2K resolution, 16 by 9, 2560 by 1440. And then normally what you're going to see here is you're going to see the common frames per second values, and this might be set to 30 and you might change it to 60, but I found that changing this to 120 gives me a much smoother recording experience and a much smoother playback experience, even though when you upload it to YouTube, it's going to change it back to 60. It still ends up, the output is much smoother than if you start with 60 and then YouTube keeps it at 60. So to change this, you go here to your fractional FPS value and you type in 120 here where it says numerator, and then that's where that's going to be changed right there. So then I'll change that to 120. I'm going to hit apply. And then the only other thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into output and going to go to my recording tab. And over here, you're going to see what settings that I have for recording. Now I've got the output mode set to advanced, and I'll just scroll down here so you can see the settings that I have. And I'm not doing anything particularly different than what the recommended settings are. The encoder is set to the NVENC HEVC, and the bitrate is set to 24,000, which is what YouTube recommends for a 2K video. Otherwise, everything else is set basically to default. So all of this stuff should be the standards that it's just set with OBS. Now, I'm sure some people will come in and be able to tell me that changing certain things will increase performance or change this around in some way. This is what I found is the best values to put in and maintain the quality of the gameplay that you have as well, because the more I turn these things up, the more it takes from the game itself. Might drop frames, may not perform as well as it needs to. So this is a good compromise between saying, hey, I want good recording and I still want the game to be able to maintain the frame rates and whatnot that I need it to do. So that's all that I'm changing in here. Audio also, it changes to 160. I think the default here is 128. So I have the audio bit rate set to 160. Other than that, no other changes with any of this stuff that I've got set here with OBS. I'm going to hit OK here now, and brings me back out to the main screen. And so the next thing we're going to do is talk about what software plugin do you need for OBS to actually capture the OpenXR output or from your headset. All right, so the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to need to download the OpenXR layer plugin for OBS. And so to do that, you can go into Google or to Bing or whatnot, type in OpenXR plugin for OBS. It's going to take you, or it's going to pop up a link called GitHub, Java, OpenXR layer, OBS mirror, and so on. Click on that link. That's going to show you this right here, which is going to be this person that created this, that developed and created the layer, so that you can pull up videos straight from your VR pipeline that's going to your headset as opposed to what's on the display, right? So this is the critical piece right here that you're going to need. You click on this button right here. The releases, the current release came out in 2023, version 2.0.2.5. Click that and it will download, okay? And so once that's downloaded, then it's going to show up as a zip file. You're going to unzip this into its own directory, which is going to look like this. Once you do that, the first thing that you want to do is just read the instructions here in the installation text. So you click this, and then this is going to tell you everything that you need to do. Just follow exactly what it says, read it, and then just do exactly what it says. And then once you're done with this, then you should be in good shape to go ahead and go on to the next step, which I will show you how to add the OpenXR into OBS. So let's take a look at that. All right, now that you've got everything loaded from the website on there, you've installed the OBS plugin per the instructions. When you relaunch back into OBS, you should be able to press the plus button down here under sources, and you should be able to turn on the OpenXR mirror capture. Now, before you do that, best practice here would be to load your game up, as I've done here in the background, where it's working like it should be working, assuming it's using the OpenXR runtime, for example, in iRacing, or using OpenXR on things like Le Mans Ultimate, or even in Flight Simulator. It all kind of works the same way. So the game is running. You've already tried it. You've put on your VR headset, and it's already fully functional, right? So everything's there. And so that's the way it's running in the background. Move that off to the side on your screen if you're running it in a window, so it's easier for you to see what I'm about to do. So then you click the Open Mirror Capture button here, and it's going to come up where you can create a name if you want to. You can call this VR headset or whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to leave it alone for right now, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And then it's going to pull it up in the background, and you're going to see the image there. And if I move the headset, you can see that it's kind of moving the image around in the background as well. Now, in these settings that you're seeing, it's defaulted to the right eye. Remember that your headset's got two displays, right? Left eye, right eye. This is going to default to the right eye, kind of giving you the right 50% of what you can see, or 70% or whatever you want to see on the right, and not the left. So I'm going to choose left because the steering wheel for most of the cars that I drive is on the left, and this helps me center it more towards the left where I see the steering wheel, and also a little bit of my left mirror. It kind of makes a little bit more sense when you see the screen come into play here in just a second. As far as the presets and all those other configurations on here, you can leave those alone. We're going to manually crop and adjust as we go here. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK here. And then you can see that the resolution of the headset's extending beyond our canvas size right here. And I'm going to zoom out of this for a second and give you an idea of how much the Pimax Super has to draw in terms of resolution on the screen. So remember, this box up here is a 2K resolution screen. So this would be the equivalent of a 2K TV or 2K monitor is what would be drawn on your screen right in this box right here. The Pimax Super has to draw all of this in this box. That's how much is actually being rendered. And then that's times 2 because this is just the left eye. So you'd have to double this to actually get a better understanding of how many pixels are being pushed by your CPU and your GPU, and why it requires so much horsepower to get these VR displays to work the way that they do. So just to give you kind of a visual understanding of what's happening here. Now, that being said, I'm only seeing this part of the car right now, which with my headset sitting down, obviously it's pointing up to the floor, or down to the floor, or up to the ceiling or whatnot. So I'm gonna make this smaller. I'm gonna grab this box down here and just kind of bring this down a little bit to where I can manage it. And then I'm going to zoom in a little bit on the canvas here so I can kind of get this focus the way that I want to. So I'm gonna zoom in here, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the headset on, and I'm not gonna put it all the way on, but just enough to kind of look through the headset a little bit, and then recenter the screen. And I'm in the cockpit view, and then I'm going to kind of lift it up just a little bit off my head here so that I can kind of see where I need to move the image to get me the right area that I want. Now you'll notice that I'm not going to get everything that I see on the screen, right? So if I zoom out, the reason why I did that is if I zoom this all the way out to where I could fit as much as I can on the screen as possible, you'll notice how it's kind of warped around on the left-hand side of the screen here. And I'm going to see all of this stuff being used here that I really am not going to be able to find useful from a video. It's going to look kind of wonky and distorted. So I'm not going to use this stuff out here. Of course, it's your choice on this, but I'm not going to use that. So what I'm going to choose to use is try to get this stuff over the steering wheel in the center of the window, right? That's where I'm trying to get there. So I'm gonna move this around a little bit and start extending this out, and kind of keep finding that spot where I'm using as much of the VR display as possible, and also basically give me something that I can record and see through. So you can see how I'm kind of dragging the picture and kind of moving it around and finding whatever I think is the right spot between windscreen and wheel, and as much field of view as I can get, right? So something like that. and maybe like this. So you notice how I'm going to kind of have to center this around a little bit to find that. And then, once I think I'm close, then I'll leave it like that. And if I don't want to see this white stuff anymore, I can click the lock button on here. That goes away. And then I should be in pretty good shape. Now, the other thing that I'm going to do is zoom back in a little bit so it's just a little bit easier to see on the screen here. So you can see, basically, I'm just resting the headset on the top of my head, kind of holding it with one hand. And it's a little bit of a process here, right, to be able to kind of do it this way. But once you set it up, you can kind of leave it and you kind of get an idea of where it needs to be. So yeah, so this is what it's going to look like on the screen now. And then from here, what you can do is go through and add in your individual, elements that you want to around the track, or you can use something like OpenKnee to see what's on your VR display as well. Or this is where you can pull up things like OpenXR Toolkit, and you'll be able to see that also in this display as well by capturing it this way. So what this is really doing is it's giving you the actual native pipeline of the OpenXR display or the VR display that's coming through the headset, and not a screen mirror that would show up on your screen. And so that way you're getting a better resolution, higher quality than what your mirror screen would be. And you're really getting a better representation of what you actually see in VR from a screen quality perspective, although you can't really replace putting these headsets on. So that's what that looks like right there. Well, I hope this has been helpful in kind of showing you how the basics go with setting up the OpenXR plugin in OBS, and a couple of tips and tricks that I've run across that make the experience even better. So if you have any questions or anything like that, leave your comments below, and yeah, we'll see you out on the racetrack. Thanks, everybody.
Right side.